one of the positives for Bitcoin and why I think, yes, there's downside, but I actually think we're going to make a low in 2023 is that we saw the Terra Luna collapse here and price dropped on Bitcoin 45%. Then you had the FTX collapse and price dropped 23 or 25%. And so you could arguably make the case that FTX was a bigger deal for crypto than the Terra Luna collapse, but price lost a smaller percentage. And so I think for me, that's saying to me, okay, we're getting closer to that bottom, even if we're not there.
Renowned technical analyst and swing trader Gareth Soloway recently appeared on the Scott Melker Show, where he discusses his 2023 prediction for Bitcoin, Ether, and other crypto assets. Though he predicts that next year will be disappointing for the stock market, Soloway believes that the cryptocurrency market will get relief from this year's bloodbath in 2023. In fact, Soloway, who is the president and chief market strategist of InTheMoneyStocks.com, believes Bitcoin prices are about to bottom. He bases this prediction on how relatively well the crypto asset has performed in the wake of the FTX collapse. Following the Terra Luna collapse in May, Bitcoin prices fell by over $10,000, going from $40,000 to $28,000 within a week. The subsequent contagion that took out several crypto lending and trading firms, including Voyager, Three Arrows Capital, and Celsius, put further pressure on Bitcoin prices. During the turbulent month that followed the Terra Luna collapse, Bitcoin prices fell even further to a new bear market low of less than $19,000. So it wouldn't be completely off the mark to say that the world's leading cryptocurrency lost more than 50% of its price as a result of the Terra Luna collapse. Many analysts, including Gareth Soloway, expected the FTX collapse to have a similar or even worse impact on Bitcoin and the entire cryptocurrency market. Fortunately, it did not. Despite having a larger impact on the industry compared to the Terra Luna collapse, the FTX collapse did not cause as much damage to Bitcoin prices. In his interview, Soloway explains that this is a very good sign for the leading crypto asset, especially as we head into what he describes will be a severe recession in 2023. Before we listen to Gareth Soloway, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Also, ensure you drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm, so we can continue to bring you these videos. Thanks and enjoy the video.
For me, it's looking at the Bitcoin chart and basically saying to myself, all right, well, right now we had the FTX fiasco. The issue here is that since that's occurred, we haven't snapped back. We've been kind of staying in the lower ranges. On a technical basis, that's short-term negative, right? And again, it's called what's called a bear flag, or in spirit of bear flag. So at least in the near term, going into January, I do think there's a little bit more downside, but there are some positives. I'd love to show you guys some charting action here. One of the positives, and in general, I'm a huge long-term bull on Bitcoin. It's just, I'm also a trader. I'm also a trader who lived through the .com era. That was the early part of my career. So many similarities in how stocks and penny stocks ran in the late 90s and then collapsed to where crypto was over the last couple of years. But I use a lot of classical trend lines. I try to limit how many different techniques and different things. I do use moving averages. Fibonacci retraces are really, really helpful as well. And you're right. You know, basically what we saw here, for instance, there was a little bit of a bullish pattern that took us up, right? So, you know, just looking at what we call a micro pattern, there was a micro move up, and then this is what's called a bullish bull flag. And you could see that it was a very short-lived bull flag as it took us right into the Federal Reserve. And then we saw a reversal. And what you don't like to see is a reversal that then negates the low of the previous bullish pattern. And that's what we have now. So, you know, you could argue again that now we're making this almost inverse pattern here, which potentially sets us up to retest that 15,700 level. Couple things that I've kind of been playing with, and I'm a stock market guy by trade. You know, that's how I grew up. I started again in the late 90s. Crypto wasn't around until 2009. But one of the things that I've been playing around with is comparing the FTX collapse and its impact on the industry to the Lehman Brothers collapse in 2008. And I think that's really interesting in terms of the fear. And remember, when you're trading charts, you're trading human emotion, right? When someone buys, they're greedy, they think it's going up. When someone sells, they're fearful, they think the price is going to go down. So really, you can compare different charts, different time periods, historical charts, to what's going on, because it tends to repeat over and over again. So if you look at that, you know, Bitcoin, or at least the S&P 500 after Lehman Brothers, dropped another 45%, and it took about 6 months. So for me, in terms of where Bitcoin could bottom in 2023, I'm looking at 6 months out from the FTX drop, which is right around May to June.
May.
And then
Yeah.
also we're looking at, right around that 10,000-ish area, potentially, maybe a little bit below in terms of Bitcoin. I also think that with Bitcoin, the 10,000 will be a max pain. And Scott, I know you know about this stuff in terms of, where do you force the most fear out of people? And it probably would be around that 10,000 break. If you look at the stock market, and the stock market's now been in a bear market since basically the start of 2022, and you've had these, in bear markets, you tend to get what's called rip your face off rallies, right? Where you have these mega sized reversals that make people think the low is in. And we really haven't seen that. If you look at Bitcoin, like the biggest rally we had was this right here, and you haven't seen that. So I agree with you that in a weird way, you'd almost expect it to catch people off guard and kind of rip up to 20 or 30 before that next leg potentially lower. I think at some point in 2023, and it could be a contagion even from the stock market. I'm actually very bearish on the stock market. I think we're heading into a recession. And so I think prices in stocks will go a lot lower. And I almost think that that's going to be the kicker for why Bitcoin declines up into a point. I think that once we get some regulation in the space, which really regulation is code for transparency for all us retail investors. We need transparency now. And I think once we get that, then you're going to start to attract big money. If there's one thing I realize, and you can see it with the big money that was invested in FTX, big money is now 100% on the sidelines. I'm not seeing any movement in the hedge fund industry to invest in crypto until there's transparency, because they have this fiduciary responsibility to safeguard funds, and there's just no clarity now.
In his interview, Soloway also discusses his investment strategy for Bitcoin in the bear market. It is a well-known fact that the technical analyst expects Bitcoin to tumble to $10,000. Soloway believes Bitcoin could fall 45% from his pre-FTX collapse price, just like the stock market did after the Lehman Brothers collapse in 2008. If this happens, it will bring Bitcoin's price to the $10,000 range. However, it is important to note that Soloway has had bearish predictions for Bitcoin since late last year. He was one of the first analysts to predict that the asset would fall to $20,000 or go even lower. Before the FTX collapse, he also predicted further declines in Bitcoin prices necessitated by a collapse, hack, or another black swan event. In his interview with Melker, he explains that he has set some money aside to invest in Bitcoin every time it goes $3,000 lower. But Soloway also has a strategy for when the crypto asset starts getting some upside moves. Let's get back to Soloway's interview as he discusses his Bitcoin investment strategy as well as his prediction for Ether in 2023.
What I've been doing in terms of my personal investments is I basically decided that when we were in that 17-ish thousand range, that I would start accumulating a little bit of a longer term hodl position in Bitcoin. But what I did before I started to do that, I took a certain amount of money. I said, this is what I feel comfortable based on my net worth, et cetera, for putting in Bitcoin. And I divided it into 6 portions, equal portions. And I took that first 1/6, then I put it in around 17 and change. And then the idea is every 3,000 down, I'll just add another 1/6 until I accumulate. This way, I'm not trying to be a fancy trader here and pick the exact bottom, because honestly, I'd probably miss it. But at least I have exposure on the way down if it does start to rip higher. So a couple things that I'm watching here on it, right? So, and that's a great point, because there's, let's say I only have a tiny position and it goes up. And so you can see here, this longer term trend line on Bitcoin did break through it. So I'm looking at this one here. All right, this kind of one connecting this high. And essentially, if we were to make a strong move up, right? So essentially, this is your big drop on FTX, and that now becomes my zone. All right, so if we were to rally up, let's say we break above that level, and let's just say we do go to 25,000. What I then look to do is I have to admit that this bigger bearish pattern has now failed. And what I would do is I would look to buy what we call a retrace to the scene of the crime, which is basically the retrace. And so once something breaks out,
flip of resistance to support. Right.
Exactly. I'm never one to chase. Like, chasing is the cardinal sin in investing and trading. What you'll do is you always get pullbacks. You just have to know what levels will now be support, and they are former resistance levels. So for instance, I would then start to pick some up right in this range if we can take out. And I think the FTX high is that's now the level to beat, as in terms of charting. Like, that is a psychological point where if we could break through that, now you're talking about potential further upside. Looking at Ethereum, for instance, one of the things you were talking about is, what is the max pain? Could it be to the upside? And the one thing I'm watching here, right, is this trend line right here, this downsloping one. I saw you had it on Bitcoin. It's basically the same sort of thing. And notice how you have this little mini bull flag right here. All right, now we are backing off. Stock market is down today again. But if we could break this level, I would say around 1235, 1240, you actually have the potential to retest this high and maybe even get to a longer term trend line. Let me erase this one. This would be a longer term up move.
17-ish or something.
Yeah, back to about 1450 to 1500. So I think that's kind of interesting there in terms of maybe we get a short-term move up before that next flush to the downside. We do break above this area, all right? So you have two options, and one would be obviously a retrace to this FTX high, same kind of thing right there. The other one would be this one back here, which I actually kind of would favor because it's a longer term trend line where same kind of thing. If you get the big breakout here, let's say all of a sudden we do get some regulation that potentially is positive for crypto in terms of transparency, it causes a price spike, then I would look to buy the pullback back to that level. So you're looking to buy, 1400-ish area, 1450 on that trend line retrace.
With at least a year of uncertainties and chaos ahead for the global economy, several experts have explained that millions of investors will be looking toward alternative investment categories like the cryptocurrency industry. Already, more investors, including several big money investors and big institutions, are showing more interest in the industry. But almost everyone agrees that new investors will stay on the sidelines until we get some form of regulation or even signs that regulators are about to make a move on getting the industry suitably regulated. If this happens in 2023, it will be an interesting year for Bitcoin and other crypto assets. What are your thoughts on Gareth Soloway's prediction for Bitcoin and Ether in 2023? How do you think the crypto markets will perform? And what are your strategies for negotiating such market environments? Please drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Also, ensure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.